something different this morning. Marie brought a plant, and that's going to be our giveaway this morning. Yes, thanks to Marie. So, of course, today is memory of 9/11, so I have a question that goes with that. And if you will raise your hand, you might know this, I'm not sure, but if you don't, it's an easy guess. So American Airlines was the first flight that departed at 7:59 a.m. It had 11 crew members and 81 passengers, and of those 81, 5 of those were the hijackers. At what time did they suspect hijacking? How much after that takeoff, how much time had elapsed before they did not get a response from the airline and they suspected hijacks?
I think it was,
Debbie?
I'm reading a book.
Okay.
I just read it yesterday.
Okay.
I think it was only like 30 minutes.
Okay.
Something
What
like
did she
that.
say?
But she said 30.
30
Less.
minutes.
Mike?
20 minutes.
Closer. Rudy?
I just thought 21 for some reason,
No.
but
15?
15. It's 15 minutes. At 8:14 a.m., they had sent a response to them to go up, and they didn't respond, and that's when they suspected hijacks. So you get the plant, Yolanda, when you leave. It's the plant today. Okay. All right, Miss Donna.
You planted
You
in
get
the
a
ground.
job.
It's a rain.
All right, Donna.
Save a life, save a plant.
It'll make 30 and 50. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Probably should just pick it up. And I was up reading the notes, so there. Exercise for people over 60. Begin by standing on a comfortable surface where you have plenty of room at each side. With a 5-pound potato bag in each hand, extend your arms straight out from your sides and hold them there as long as you can. Try to reach a full minute, then relax. Each day, you'll find that you can hold this position for just a bit longer. After a couple of weeks, move up to a 10-pound potato bag. Then try 50-pound potato bags, and eventually try to get to where you can lift a 100-pound potato bag in each hand and hold your arms straight for more than a full minute. I'm at this level. After you feel confident in this level, put potatoes in the bag.
I was going to say, where do they sell 100?
I thought you always passed it, 100 pounds and all that stuff. It's okay, I've told this one before. A pastor went to the dentist for a set of false teeth. The first Sunday after he got his teeth, he preached for only 8 minutes. The second Sunday, he taught for only 10 minutes. The following Sunday, he taught for 2 hours and 48 minutes. The congregation had to mob him to get him down from the pulpit. And they asked him what happened. The pastor explained the first Sunday, his gums hurt so bad he couldn't talk for more than 8 minutes. The second Sunday, his gums hurt too much to talk for more than 10 minutes. And on the third Sunday, by mistake, he put his wife's teeth in his mouth and he couldn't shut up. This is a little long, though, maybe one Sunday morning, an old cowboy entered the church just before service were to begin. Although the old man and his clothes were spotlessly clean, he wore jeans, boots that were very worn and ragged. In his hand, he carried a worn-out old hat and an equal worn-out Bible. The church he entered was in a very upscale and exclusive part of the city. It was the largest and most beautiful church the old cowboy had ever seen. In the city, the people of the congregation were all dressed in expensive clothes and accessories. As the cowboy took a seat, the others moved away from him. No one breathed, spoke, or even welcomed him. They were all appalled at their appearance and did not attempt to hide it. As the old cowboy was leaving the church, the pastor approached him and asked the cowboy to do him a favor. Before you come back in here again, have a talk with God and ask him what he thinks would be appropriate attire for this worship. The old cowboy assured the preacher he would do that the next time he came. Sunday, he showed up for the service wearing the same ragged jeans, shirt, boots, and hats. Once again, he was completely shunned and ignored. The preacher approached the man and said, "I thought I asked you to speak to God before you came back to the church." "I did," replied the old cowboy. "If you spoke to God, what did he tell you the proper attire would be for worshiping in here?" asked the preacher. "Well, sir, God told me that he didn't have a clue what I should wear. He said he's never been in this church."
Well, I find it rather ironic that the giveaway is a plant. I'm glad I didn't win it because my wife is having me destroy all the plants in our little backyard area, so that would not be a good thing to introduce another one there and say, "Where'd that come from?" Yeah. Oh gosh, it's just a little. It's like a 10 by 3, maybe 2.5, and then an area that's a little wider. And it just has weeds. It's all weeds and a tree that I've cut down to nothing, and it's just there. You know, we don't tend it or anything. But yeah, that last one, that got me. That's good. That's good. I didn't think about it first, and then it dawned on me. Oh, he's never cooking. So I like that Steve, he got with me a couple weeks ago, and he said that we were going to be doing like we notify you guys about what scripture we're going to be going through, so I kind of like that. That's really good. So yeah, it's kind of hard for me though because I work through all of this before I go through it. So a lot of times I'm going, okay, where did we end? So sometimes you're going to read more than maybe than I'm able to get through, you know, just because I run my mouth, like, you know, it's my teeth too. Somebody else's. So Matthew 10. We're 37. And I'm not going to give you context for this. I'm going to have you give me the context of this. Okay? So, number one, who has he been talking to? His disciples. That's in the beginning of the chapter there. Again, the reason that some of these chapters are really long is because typically they're broken up by events. They're broken up by some sort of section change. Okay, remember, these didn't exist when it was originally written, and we've kind of broken it up. And it helps a little bit, because here, this whole thing is all his disciples, and then chapter 11 moves on to something totally different, okay? So this whole time has been started where he's talking to his disciples, preparing to send them out. Okay, he's talking to them. This isn't a broad group. This is exclusively those who are following him. This is, again, just isn't the 12. Okay, because in Luke it says he sends out the 72. So these are people who've been following him, just not his select apostles. Okay, these are other disciples as well. Can I get someone to read just 37 and 37 through 39?
Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their
Does anyone know how many different words for love the Greek uses in Scripture? There are several of them, but there are only 4 that are found in the Bible. Does anyone know what one of the 4 is?
Agape.
Agape. What is that love? What is that love? What does that mean?
It's God's love.
God's love. Someone said it over here. Begins with S. I heard someone say it.
Selfless?
Selfless. Sacrificial. In fact, the old King James translated in 1 Corinthians 13, the word is agapes. That word gets translated in the original KJV as charity. Because charity is literally you taking from what you are or have and giving away, and you get nothing. That's the love that agape is, okay? So that's agape. That's the God's love. That's a sacrificial, holy giving, W-H-O-L-L-Y, giving of yourself. What's another love?
Storge.
Okay, storge. What is storge? Familial love. The only time that's ever used is when Paul is talking about people who lack natural love. Astorgos, meaning without natural affection. So like when you're born into a family, you sort of have a normal or a natural love for your brother, sister, or mother, or father, just because they're your family, just because of that. It's not because you built a relationship, it's just because they're a part of your family. People who lack that are called astorgame, meaning they lack any of that natural inherent love. Okay? What's a third one? Phileo. What is phileo? What is phileo?
Brotherly love.
Brotherly love. What kind of love, how would you express that?
Friend.
Friends. This is a love you have between friends. You may not delve into the deep, dark secrets that you would say your family. You may share very deeply, but it's a deep connection that you have with a person that's not in your family and not a stranger. Okay? You're not necessarily being charitable because you're already getting something back. It's not as hard of a love as agape or as easy a love as storge. Okay? What's the 4th one that's not barely used at all? Eros. What is eros?
Sexual love.
Sexual love. Okay? That word is not used for love necessarily in the context of like loving each other. It's only specifically between the love that a man has for a woman or a woman has for a man. Okay? There's a section where in the Old Testament, in Hebrew, and the word is related to the Greek word, where Jacob sees Rachel, and it says he loves her. This is not a agape. It's not a phileo. This is a sexual desire. I love that woman because I see her. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? He's single, she's single, and that's why he works then for 7 years. Okay? So this is what we're talking about. We have these 4 different loves. Here, the word love is used. What love? It says, he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Why would he use storge? But he's contrasting that with the love you have for him. So you would have a storge love for God?
No.
No. What love is he using? Agape. Do you agape your father and mother? No, because you don't have to. They're familial love already. And he's now comparing it to him. So what love is he talking about? It's going to be that third one you have for others. Not eros. Phileo. The word here, phileo, is the kind of relationship that you have with your father and mother. Not like the storge familial love, oh, big hugs and everything, but the kind where you would do things for them and you share with them. If you do that more to mother and father than me, you're not worthy of me. How does that translate into life? How does that translate into action? How can we phileo God, friendship love God more than our family, close family? What does that look like? How about about this. What do you do with Phileo's friends? Okay. What do you do with your friends? Associate. What else?
Spend time with them.
Spend time with them. What else? Eat. You eat with them. Ooh, we're getting into the before. It's good.
Talk to them.
You talk to them. You confide in them. What else is a very important part of being a good friend? Trust, listening. All of these things we are to have for God more than our family. What do you think this meant to these disciples when they hear these words? How do you think they processed this?
Not well.
Not well. Why?
Well, I would think you would take it the wrong way in the beginning before you understand what he's talking about.
Does anyone know the parallel passage to this in Luke? Doesn't use the word love.
Uses hate, doesn't it?
Uses hate. People have taken that and gone all sorts of weird ways with it. The world has in fact used that passage to really kind of mar us because it's saying, oh, you have to hate your family to love Jesus. The idea there, in Luke it's making a contrast. The idea of your love, or the expression of your love for your family, say you have at 100, all right? My expression of my love, both familial and friendly, is like at 100 with my mom, okay? The idea here, if I love my mom more than Jesus, I'm not worthy of him. So my love for Jesus has to be where? Wait, does that mean I love my mom less?
No.
No. That means I put even more effort into my relationship with Christ than I do my mother. Do I talk to my mother daily?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I don't. Not every day.
Not every day.
Do I tell you everything?
I'm sure you don't.
Do I look to you for advice?
Sometimes.
Nope. Do I trust and appreciate you?
I hope so.
Do I listen to you?
Sometimes.
Wrong person. Next question. That's what we're talking about here. Now remember, when we talk about Christ, we're talking about who? Who is Christ?
God.
God. Who do they think Christ is right now? So early.
A man.
A man who does
A friend.
what? A friend. A teacher. And yet he says something so deeply profound, it's going to get worse for them in a second. But he says something so deeply profound that I can imagine mind-blowing. Okay? And even Peter later on says, what about us? We've given up all these things, all of our family and everything to follow you. Okay, so there's a concern here. And Jesus is going to go one step further. Remember, they don't think of him as Jesus, God, died for our sins yet. He hasn't done that. They don't have that concept in their minds. In fact, it isn't even in their minds after he died and rose again. It doesn't come to them until after the Spirit, and they really, oh my gosh, and then they get it, right? So now he's going to go a little bit further with that. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. What is the cross?
Crucifixion.
Death, crucifixion. Were they aware of what the cross is? Yes. Why is Jesus saying, take up your cross? What is that? Not to us, but what would that be to them? What kind of thoughts might they think when he says, take up your crucifixion and follow me daily? What does that mean to them?
They're realizing if they follow him, it's probably going to lead to that.
They're going to share with him in something terrible. Did they know he's going to die yet?
No.
No, they don't understand this. He hasn't even explained that to them yet. He does later on when he has to go to Jerusalem. He hasn't explained that to them yet. Very profound. Take up your method of execution daily and follow me. What would be an expression that we could use?
Die to yourself.
Something more extreme. Give me something extreme. This is extreme to them. Cross is extreme to them.
Lay down your life for
or
Deeper.
Deny yourself.
Deeper. Take up your what and follow Jesus? What would you take up? That's just like what they're thinking here. Crucifixion is a method of death used by Romans. What's something that would be a parallel for us? You want to go extreme? Take up your electric chair daily and follow me. How's that feel? Take up your electric chair, take up your gas chamber. Isn't that kind of almost offensive? Take up your method of execution. For some people in other countries, it's take up your beheading and follow me. That hits you right there, right? Think about that. It's not just some, oh, Jesus died on the cross. I'll take up my cross daily and follow him. No. When he talks about dying to yourself, he's talking about dying to yourself. It's not a light, fluffy thing that I hear so often of like, oh, I wear the cross to remind me of Jesus' sacrifice. What about thinking about the sacrifices that you're making for him? Think about all those deep, dark desires, all those things that you want to pursue, and all of the things that make you who you are sometimes. And when you come to him, he says, all of that goes and it dies. Every day, you're going to have to kill that flesh. You put it in the chair, you put it in the chamber, you get rid of it. Every single day. How much more does that make it a challenge to be a Christian? That's some fluffy, easy thing. When we take Jesus' words and we lessen them and we make them anything less than what they are, we're diminishing his teaching. It's almost like plucking words out of Revelation that we don't like and kind of throwing them away. We're not supposed to do that. His words hit so hard here that it was incomprehensible for them. For them to understand, wait a minute, why would my teacher tell me to take up the evil authoritarian method of execution for people they don't like? Why would he tell me to do that? Because it's extreme. It's extreme. Jesus doesn't want to hit people in a way that makes them think. He wants to hit them in a way that makes them challenged. Jesus doesn't want to make you think. He wants to challenge you, and you have a choice. If you don't do these things, then what? You're not worthy. Now, keeping that in mind, this next verse, he who has found his life will lose it, and he who has lost his life for my sake will find it. That some of you have a different word than life. Does anyone else have a different word there in 39 other than life? He who finds his what? Does anyone have the word soul? No one has soul? Some translations will put the word soul. The word life there is interesting. It's just not the word for like your flesh and your being and you're alive. The word is actually psyche. Thinking about what he just said. Okay? Talks about taking your cross daily, taking your flesh execution with you daily. Psyche refers to what when we think of it?
Your mind.
Your mind. And what does your mind do for you? What are some things your mind does?
Confusion. It governs what you do.
Oh, perfect. It governs what you do. Your mind is the center of your will, your volition. It is the totality of who you are. We use the word heart. Does your heart think? No. In Eastern cultures, instead of the mind being up here, it's here, the gut. In fact, whenever I talked about the word compassion, it comes from here, right? From the center of one's being moving out. And that's why they use, or we translate the word heart, and we kind of say up here, because if we don't have a heart, then you die. Well, that's not necessarily true. Machines can do it for you, but you still need blood, right? The heart of you, the very center of you, your will, your volition comes from this thing in here. Jesus says he who finds his psyche will lose it, and he who loses his psyche will find it. And he's talking about executing the flesh daily. What do these things do together? What does that mean? What's something that people say when they're in their 30s or my age? They're trying to what themselves?
Find themselves.
What does that mean? What does it mean? Find direction. A lot of people my age end up selling their car, divorcing their wife, leaving their house, taking their dog and getting a red Corvette and driving really fast on the highway with shades on. I have never considered that. Maybe I was 20, I'm 40. No, never. Finding yourself. Finding your head space. Finding your heart. Finding what you really want. What do I want? What is my mission? What am I supposed to do? What do I have to get? What am I getting from everything? Where should I go? I, my, me, mo, my, me, I. Right? I. Wrong. Who said wrong? Thank you. Wrong. Jesus is saying here, in all of this, loving your parents more than me, sharing with them more than me, caring for them more than me, your relationship is stronger with them more than me. Die to yourself daily, and if you find who you are, you're going to lose yourself. But if you lose yourself, you find me. When we put these things into practice, they don't just look like, I've heard people say that I'm trying. It's a good word, but I think Yoda put it best when he says, do or do not. There is no try. The church at Laodicea, I wish that you either were cold, did not, or were hot, did. But because you're kind of trying in the middle, I'm going to spit you out. You're not worth anything. Cold, you're like, hey, that's a nice cold ice cream. That's really good. Oh, that's a nice warm, hot chili. I like those two things. My ice cream is now soup. And my chili is stone cold. I know I like stone cold chili. My chili is kind of lukewarm in the middle. Jesus doesn't want that. When we commit to follow Christ, and he's talking to his disciples before the crucifixion, when we, how much more, commit to follow him for his death and resurrection and receiving the Spirit and living his life, how much more are we to give up the very core desires that we have? The very things that make us, us. A lot of times you hear people say, I'm only human. I get that and I understand that. But sometimes that's making an excuse saying that, it's okay that I did that, I'm flawed. Instead, we ought to say, I shouldn't have done that. I should expect more of myself because Jesus does. If I want to follow Jesus, what does he look like? When I walk like Jesus, like we talked about on Sunday, if Jesus walked a certain way, why don't I walk a certain way? And it doesn't happen overnight. You ever see The Lion King? And rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Mufasa puts a paw print down, right? Simba comes behind him. Simba's in trouble. Okay? He did something he wasn't supposed to. And Simba's foot falls in the paw print of Mufasa. And he goes, oh. And he realizes just how big and majestic and powerful and authoritative and judgmental his father is when he puts his paw in that and sees the difference. But should he stop following his father? No. Does he compare to his father? No. And his father has mercy on him, even though he made a mistake. We're going to make mistakes. But that does not mean we get to make excuses for those and say things like, well, that's just who I am. Really? Because I got some words that Jesus has right here for you. That's just who you are. Jesus wants you to be like him every day, in every action, in every thought, in every deed. And the only way to understand that is to have a relationship with him. For us, we have the Spirit. They didn't have that. We have that. And when we commune with fellow believers and we say, hey, I have sin in my life. I have something wrong. Help me. That is strengthening your relationship with Jesus. Because now you're becoming like him. Jesus impresses these things upon these people in such a way that they're kind of shocked and they really don't know what to say. We don't have any record of what they say to this. Okay, we just have what Jesus said, which is, of course, the profundity and the important parts. But I want you to remember that, again, he's telling people these things before any of this theology has come to them. A lot of them are fishermen. They don't really get it. They don't fully understand it. And yet us, we have no excuse. None. We sit here and we hear it every Sunday. We hear it all on Wednesdays. Some of you have heard me 3 times in 1 week. I apologize. I will try not to have that happen. I blame Steve somehow. So just remember that. Again, this is something that when you go to follow Jesus, like he says, a man doesn't go and build a tower without first analyzing exactly what he needs to do it. It's the same thing. You either do or you don't. And you have to choose one. Does anyone else have anything else for that? Okay, so we go on the next part here. Verse 40. Someone read 40 through 42, through the end of the chapter.
Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you that person will certainly not lose their reward.
Love that so much. Okay. Here's going to the reward part. All right? What is required to get a reward? Just using this passage. What is required?
Doing something.
Doing what?
Follow.
Good deeds? Give me words right in there. It's right there.
Receiving something.
Right there at the end. What's the end? The last verse.
Have a cup of cold water.
How simple of it is it to give someone a drink in the name of Jesus? Is that hard? Is it profound? Do you have to be in nice clothes? Do you have to be a preacher?
No.
No. You can be anybody. It's so small, so simple. Jesus gives them this whole big elephant to chew on and says, and yet, if you do something so small, to whom?
Little one.
The little ones, the least of these, the ones that people don't even think about, the ones that people are, in fact, going to pull away from Jesus. A cup of cold water, something so simple and yet so loving, done in his name, for his kingdom, and they don't lose their reward. This whole big deal, this whole dying to yourself, changing your mind. If you find yourself, you lose it. If you lose yourself, you find me. And yet all of it comes down to just something simple. Start small. Years ago, there was the whole, what do they call it? Pay it forward, some random acts of kindness or something. And a lot of times, and I had my atheist friend actually ask me this, and she said, when you do something for someone, how does it make you feel? I said, sometimes it's hard because I do it and it hurts me. She said, well, that's a different answer. She said, most of the time people say, when they do something nice, they feel good about themselves. I said, why would I do something to feel good about myself? I'll just do something for myself. Why would I do something? Like if someone needs a bill paid, and I go, oh, here's 20 bucks. It's like I said last week, we give out a few copper coins to clean our mind, but instead, we ought to either do the whole thing or walk away with our sorrow to ourselves. Again, something so small we can start with. It doesn't have to be large and profound. And Jesus says this little thing has a reward. Now we're talking about reception when he says, he who receives me, or excuse me, he who receives you receives me. What is that like? What did they do in ancient days that was like that? We kind of do it now, but governments do it.
Don't take care of other people.
Well, when he's talking about receiving, okay, you have two countries, all right? Two heads of state. And it happens often now, but back then, did the head of a state usually go to the other state? What did they send?
Emissary.
Emissaries, envoys. They would send someone in their stead. And if you received that emissary and envoy and cared for them, then you were caring for,
Yeah, I mean,
right, the ruler.
Yeah.
It's no different here, okay? He says the same thing when he talks about dusting off your shoes. If you go somewhere, no matter where it be, and this includes family, and you present Christ, and you present the message, and you are refused, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to respond to that? What does that mean?
I remember the lieutenant, many years ago. It was fine, you don't want to accept Christ, but then they said something back, and I wiped off my shoes.
Like, you also do good news, and they aren't interested. So walk away and give it to somebody that wants something.
It's not on you. Does that mean you end the relationship with that person? No. But if they've refused you, how much more have they refused him that sent you? Sometimes I think we get in the mode of like, oh, they don't want to receive Jesus. That, oh gosh, now I've got to feel funny about it. I'll give you an example. This week I found out that one of my coworkers, I have two coworkers that are one of my favorites. And I found out this other one was also gay. And I'm like, how am I making friends with the gay people? It's a good thing, you know. But they both believe in God. And I know the one actually goes to church. I want to try to get her here too, because she doesn't go anywhere. I said, what denomination are you? And she says, I'm a Christian. I went, and my stupid brain, I can't be, tender. I just like, yeah, I know you're a Christian. I got that. What denomination? And I'm glad that she was a very lighthearted, she's very lighthearted. That's why we connect so well. She's always goofy. And after I said it, I went, oh, stupid, don't be you. And then she's like, oh, I don't really know. And I said, oh, this is an opportunity. I said, you don't have a background? She's like, no, just a Christian church. Okay, not Christian church, labeled Christian church, but Christian church is in Christians go to church, okay? So I was like, okay, there's an opportunity here. And then later on in that day, or maybe it was yesterday, and she said, oh, I'll tell you guys, she said, I'm gay and all that. And I was like, oh, well, you don't have to hide that. There's like a whole bunch here. But I thought, wait a minute, do I feel weird now with her? Do I have a weird feeling now? Because I know that my other coworker who, and I know she's in the faith, her dad was a preacher and all that. And I was like, all of a sudden I could feel Matt kind of turn off a little bit, and I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. She's already received Jesus. You have an opening to move forward. This isn't oh, you believe in that stuff, I don't want to talk to you. This is my life condition. And I have a choice to either be, okay, something we can work on, or I can just go, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this. When we get in those situations where we present Jesus, especially when it comes to family, as you've done frequently, it can be difficult when you present that thing, especially when they know that that's a part of your life, and then you just want to hammer it into them. Come on, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus every time. You end up crumbling that relationship when instead you could be Jesus and strengthen them. Jesus doesn't go and slam people over the head over and over and over and over and over. He doesn't walk into the Pharisees. He doesn't walk into the Sanhedrin and just start being Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. He goes places and people come to him. I will draw all people to myself. Don't get it confused that you don't talk to people about Jesus or your faith. But if someone shuts you down so hard, this may not be the time. It may take something catastrophic in their life. My buddy, in fact, has had a pretty rough time. But the girlfriend who him and I have known years ago, that he's seeing now, and we're all pretty close, is, of course, going to church, and she's grown a lot in her faith over the years. This was really great to see. We all had a big conversation a couple weeks ago. And now I see him saying things. And I was like, finally. For years I've worked on my buddy. Years. I've known him for, oh gosh, almost 30 years now. And it was like moving that rock. And he'd go, and then he'd nod, and then he'd be there, and then not. And all of a sudden now he's kind of blossoming. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. It took somebody else, not me. I'm not meant to reach everybody. It's not going to happen. You're not going to hit everybody. But the people that you do hit, the ones that have that opening, no matter where they are in their life, no matter what sin is in their life, no matter what horrible things they've done, if you have that opening, right there, you take it. You take it. Because they're not just accepting you. They're listening to one who sent you. So much more. And I think we need to remember that when we move forward every day. You're going to encounter people, especially when we talk about this culture. This, I don't like saying that, culture. Yeah, it's like bacteria, how I feel about it now. It's a culture. And it's awful. And I don't know why. I read about it, but you can't be apart from the world. You know, we're in it. But we just can't be of it. But we're going to be in this culture. We're going to interact with these people. We're going to interact with individuals who don't know Jesus. And when they don't know Jesus and they're full of sin, you should expect that. You should expect that. It's not, oh, you're a sinful person and you don't know Jesus? Oh, let me go find the guy who's got the good life. And that guy I'll talk to. No, he's probably going to refuse Jesus. He's probably going to turn him down. How hard is it for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven? Why? Because he's got everything. He's found himself. We're going to be going out to the people who are hurting, they're pained, their lives have been devastated, they don't know who they are, they don't know what they want, they sin, they love to sin, they live lives that we say, what are they doing? Those are the people that if they listen to you and say, oh, you go to church? I've never really been to church. That's that moment. Jesus has cracked that door and he goes, what are you going to do with that door? You better put your foot in that door, put your arm in and wing that door wide open. Because that's the opportunity, especially when you have a relationship already with that person. You're a friend of them, or a coworker, or family. And if they come to you, as you've had happen, and they come to you and say, hey, I'm starting to wonder, you really got it. You really, and then it's not on you. If they decide that they don't want to continue, that's fine. You spread the seed, or you watered, or you tended it. You did what you were supposed to do. And that's what Jesus is telling his disciples. And more so, that's what he tells us. Every single day, who you are or think you are, you've got to put it off to put on the new man, to put on Jesus, to be Jesus to people who don't only not know him, they don't even know their right hand from their left hand. They're like children. They have no clue what anything's about. And we are called to love them, care for them, in such a way that they feel like family to us. And we take them to Jesus. We guide them to him. Just as Andrew did with Peter, or Philip does with the Ethiopian. That's our role outside the church. Does anyone else have anything for that?
Russell, along those lines, I don't know, I hadn't even remembered the date, but on the way here, I heard a Alan Jackson song about the day the world quit turning, I believe it was, about 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember ever hearing that song, but the disc jockey said on the country station that I listened to that that's become kind of the remembrance song for that event in the country world, evidently. But all through it, as soon as he got started, I mean, I had tears running down my face because it is such a sad song. And if there's anything that can bring people together, is mourning a catastrophe like that, and you see where you are like versus where you're so different. Does that make any sense?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, but again, same thing. When you talk to people, you don't, what's the adage? Hate the sin, not the sinner. Your job isn't to hate the sin. That's not your job. Your job isn't to hate the sin. Your job is to just love that person. Just love them. That's your job. Don't hate the sin. You're going to hate the sin in your own life. Don't worry about their life. If they're not with Jesus, you find that common ground. That common ground is, hey, I've done stupid stuff that you didn't do. You're pure in that area, and I'm not. And I'm pure in an area that you're not. We're human. Hey, let's come together on that. But too many Christians don't do that. It's, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that thing. I would never do that. My church doesn't do that. And then other people go, oh, I can't believe you do that. What is that you do? That's crazy.
We're just called to be a candle in a dark room.
Oh my gosh, candle on a hill. Have you ever seen a lighthouse when you're in the ocean? Because of the height of it, it goes out even further, because of the horizon. It's so incredible what such a light at such a distance will do. And you see that thing that points you towards somewhere that's safe. We have to be that light. Not something that is turned off, not something that's pushing people away. We can't do that. If people are utterly sinning, especially in the church, if they're utterly sinning and they refuse to repent, then you have nothing to do with them, lest you also be pulled into their sin. But sinners, sometimes you're with them, and they're going to sin, they're going to do that stuff, but you don't do it with them. You don't do the gossiping. You don't do the backbiting. A lot of times, especially in this environment, it's the political name-calling and the mudslinging. You don't have to do that. You can say your opinions, but we don't have to trash another person because they have different opinions. A lot of people have different opinions about Scripture than I do, and I don't trash them. I could say that's kind of ridiculous. But the person is a person. They're not ridiculous. They're not stupid. The ideas might be, but they're not. And that's what's important to remember. Find that, that's good, common ground.